after years of floundering around before, during, and after college, figuring out where I was gonna be in the northeastern United States, I finally settled down and figured out where I'm supposed to be, and it's in the city I've been living in for the past 4 years. But hey, if you've graduated from UMich or you live here, I think a lot of people can attest Ann Arbor, Michigan is a fantastic city, one of the best in the state of Michigan and one of the best in the country as well. I'll go over why. I also have gotten a studio space after literally a decade of only working from home and never having a real job. I finally have a brick and mortar space to go to away from my apartment because I was spending way too much time in there alone working. It turns out you can't do that. We'll also touch on that. And per the title of this video, I have worked the Mac Studio into this setup here, a studio for my studio, so to speak, a little play on words there. It is an integral piece of my workflow now, and I'm gonna talk about that and again, just sort of how I ended up here and why I didn't move to New York. Okay, so first up, why the Mac Studio? What inspired me to grab one of these? Well, I'll keep it really brief. I've tried to explain this in previous takes and I just kept yapping and yapping, so I'll get more into depth with this later in the video, but long story short, I'm gonna recap a video that I posted a couple months back about downgrading to an M4 Pro MacBook Pro 16-inch. Turns out the mid-tier MacBook Pro models are almost as good as the top end or maxed out, MacBook Pros from the last couple years. So I was using an M1 Max, maxed out MacBook Pro, then an M2 Max one. I skipped the M3 Max. And then I was thinking about getting an M4 Max, but I couldn't justify it for two reasons. Number one, they're super expensive and just a liability to drag around. I was stressed out, dragging around this like $5,000, $6,000 laptop with all my work on it, so I really didn't enjoy that. And number two, I was using it at my desk 99% of the time, with like the couple percent exception of working on the go or bringing it to my parents' house or whatever, just sort of having a mobile workstation. So I knew I needed a 16-inch MacBook Pro, but I knew I wanted max chip performance and all that RAM because, my video editing spans from light video editing to moderate to lots of multicam and 4K and then sometimes really insane 8K, experimental stuff. All the while, I want a perfectly performant timeline. I don't care about exports. I want no stutter, no lag. If there's lag, I don't want to work. I want to like punch a hole into a wall. So, having just the most horsepower at any given moment is super important to me. So I needed that max chip power. I didn't want it in a MacBook form, but I needed the 16-inch MacBook form. And thankfully, now with the M4 chips, you get Thunderbolt 5 or at least M4 Pro and up. And now that means that you can work externally without bottlenecking your performance because formerly the internal drives were faster, so you'd want to edit on those. So it was tough going back and forth between devices. Now you can do that, which is why I decided to go with the Mac Studio because now I can work here, work externally, and then copy my work to a drive, bring that home, and then work on my laptop if need be as well with the same or similar drive or actually identical drive. Again, I'll get into this setup, but yeah, that allows me to work here primarily for editing and whatnot and work from home if I need to on accident or if I really need to with the backup drive or on purpose if I plan on working from home with the main external drive. So anyway, I'll touch on this more. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that's this situation, this Mac Studio, MacBook Pro situation gets me the most for my money and sort of makes the dream work over here. Funnily enough though, I did not anticipate getting a studio for my literal studio. I was dead set on this Mac setup that I just described before I even contemplated renting office space. So once again, I'm really happy with the way this setup works out because it allows me to work here and then work at home if I need to, but keep those spaces separate, which is a big theme of this video. I also use the MacBook Air and I've created a desk setup in here as well with a different monitor and a different vibe. So I'll touch a little bit on that. I'll probably make a whole separate video on that as well. But yeah, I have sort of split up my work. I have more specific desk setups, not just here, but also at home too, which I'll lightly touch on in this video as well. But before I get into more of what I do with the Mac Studio and the setup that I have back here, I want to talk more about, again, how I ended up here, why I stayed in my new hometown, and why I rented this specific office space. Anyway, like I said in the intro, and with the exception of like a 3-4 week stint of doing a grad photography job out here actually in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti before I even knew I was moving out here for school and eventually for work and just life and settling down here, I was doing that because YouTube wasn't working out. I was like graduating high school, I needed money, and Shortly after that, YouTube actually started working out. But before, you know, I started in October of 2015. I did it as a hobby. I did it because I was passionate about it. I wanted to be like Marquez and Lou and all the old school tech YouTubers and just talk about Apple and tech and all that. And it worked out in the middle of 2019, and then I was working from home, you know, full time, like my parents' house. And then in 2020, I transferred to U of M Ann Arbor, to the Ross School of Business, and then I had to get an apartment out here, and I moved operations to an apartment, which was an upgrade, but shortly after moving there, I realized that that apartment was just not working out aesthetically with natural light and just the way things were set up. It kind of felt like a haphazardly put together cage that I lived in for a while, and I didn't like it there. And let me get to the point here. I have only really worked from home for my entire career. And as you can imagine, as school became less and less, and I was home more and more and working from home more and more, it gets to be a little daunting. And it sounds like I'm complaining, and I absolutely am. And to those of you who can't work from home, I am sorry, but there is a limit. If you only work from home and live at home and you're at home, you know, 12, 14 hours a day because your job is very demanding and all that, and sure you go to the grocery store and sure you see your parents and your friends and whatever, it's a nightmare. And it was beginning to become a nightmare, especially after college, because all I was doing was, you know, working from home, because like that was where I had to be like 40, 50, 60 hours a week, depending on, you know, the rigor of the month or the quarter or the time of year or season, especially like later in the year. And this became a problem in Q4 of 2023 when I was at the old place, and also 2024 when I was at the new place. I ended up moving to a new place, which was better, but even still, I just realized that I was spending a lot of conscious waking hours at home, living and working, to the point where I like asked ChatGPT, like compared to like my peers, you know, someone who's like 24, going to the office or being somewhere 40, 50 hours a week, how much more time, like what's the conversion factor of how much more time I'm spending conscious awake at home, you know, just there existing. And it was like, oh yeah, 2.5 times more time than your peers. And, you know, if you calculate that, you know, for example, the past 2 years have been just pretty much me locked in, working, really, you know, working on my business, scaling this, taking it very seriously. If you take 2 times 2.5, what is that? 5 years almost, 5 years of living at home compared to, you know, someone just doing 2 years, you know, like in a 2-year span, I was doing 5 years worth of living and working at home compared to someone doing just 2 years of that. And maybe to some of you, I just almost dropped my phone. To some of you, that might sound like a dream, but again, if you're only doing it and you're the one-man band, and you're the employer and the employee, you manage your time, you manage your space, it's just you don't have any coworkers, you wake up in the morning, you plan your work in your room, you do it in the next room, you come back to that room, you do more work there, sure you go to Target, sure you go to Costco, you come back, you just constantly revolving around the same place, you know, for 14 hours a day. It is maddening. Anyway, halfway through thugging it out, you know, just living and working at home, because I had to do it. It just made financial sense. I was also getting a grip on just life and my job. I had this really wonderful, delusional, girly pop idea to move to the big city. The first city was Chicago, and then later on it evolved into New York City, which I'm sure more of you are familiar with. And, you know, I had people I was gonna move with at the time, and it just seemed like the next step in terms of the city vibe and the lifestyle content, and that was a popular place to be, and the networking, and a lot of content creators live there. It just made sense. But the more I sort of sat on the idea and chewed through it, and also just the people that I was gonna move with, we went our separate ways, it just made less and less sense for several reasons. Number one, Chicago, even though it's like 4 hours west by car, pretty far. I have some family there, but I would be very far from my loved ones, and that just didn't make any sense. Also too, Chicago, and of course New York, which is even further, is super expensive, like way too expensive just to live in a decent spot. And I need a decent spot to do my job. I need a decent spot in suburbia, sort of, where I live right now, and I'll, you know, explain that later. But like, I need a nice apartment because it's sort of my set, you know, because I do lifestyle content, I need to shoot there, especially during the winter. So I couldn't just have any rinky-dink apartment, and that would have ran me, oh my gosh, you know, upwards of $4,000 or $5,000 in New York, probably something similar in Chicago, and I wouldn't be able to do something like this, including hearing a siren. But you know what? It's sweet. I love being in my downtown area, which I'll get to. I'm kind of spoiling that, but anyway, yeah, it just didn't make sense to move to Chicago or New York because of the people situation, which was, you know, a small component, but more so the just the expensiveness of it all and the lack of proximity to my family. And I realized I just wanted the city vibe. I just wanted the city vibe. I just wanted to be a city girl. I didn't need to, you know, move my entire life and myself, you know, 400, 500 to 900 miles away, or however far New York is. I think it's like 700 miles. The point is, I am the opportunity, you know? I had people sort of, you know, egging me on to move for, you know, networking and sort of, you know, connections and all that, and those are important, but YouTube brings me that already. I have a lot of connections I'm very grateful for. My friend Isaac in Toronto, my friend Tom in London, my friend Chris in California, my connections at Apple, who were kind enough to hook me up with this Mac Studio, actually, full disclosure. You know, so many people I already know because of the internet. So I can do what I do wherever I want in the world, and why wouldn't I stay put, you know, within, you know, a half-hour drive of my family, and also this wonderful city that I live in, which I will touch on more in this video, of course. But real quick, before we continue here, I have a brief message from today's video sponsor, TORRAS, who actually make my favorite iPhone 16 Pro case and also made today's video possible. Turns out they have amazing charging accessories too, and they sent over 2 here to showcase today. First up, we have their MiniMag 5000 mAh and 10,000 mAh MagSafe portable chargers. They're designed in a fantastic minimal way and are crafted out of high quality metal or aluminum to match the premium build of your iPhone, and have some strong magnets for MagSafe as well. They're also super slim, the 5000 mAh MiniMag especially at just 0.3 inches thick. They don't really add much extra bulk or weight to your phone, which I really enjoy. The battery cells inside are also high quality or EV grade according to TORRAS too, and will get you through 500 plus cycles no problem. The 5000 mAh MiniMag also offers a respectable 7.5 watts of wireless charging speed and 18 watts of wired charging through its built-in port. The 10,000 mAh MiniMag happens to come in a 7.5 watt wireless charging variant too, with slightly faster 22.5 wired charging. However, it also comes in a Qi 2 variant, which can both wirelessly charge your iPhone at 15 watts and do wired charging at 30 watts, which I think is pretty impressive. And both 10,000 mAh MiniMag versions here can top your iPhone 16 Pro off 1.5 times, which is amazing considering the size and portability here, whereas the even slimmer 5,000 mAh comes in clutch when you want to top off your battery when you're running low in a pinch, which I find reassuring. I'll definitely be carrying one or both of these around depending on what my day or usage looks like. And last up here we have their Flexiline 40 watt charger, which is not only built nicely as well, but packs a super convenient built-in retractable 27-inch USB-C cable. This is really amazing because I always get annoyed when I have to grab a cable to shove in my pocket or bag on top of a charging brick when needed. But with the Flexiline, it's all in one, albeit you can plug into the built-in USB-C output if you want to split or share the impressive 40 watt total power output. An amazing figure considering this charger's small size. And of course, it has foldable wall outlet prongs, which makes it even easier to throw in a pocket or bag without it getting snagged on anything. All in all though, these are genuinely useful, convenient charging products that are working their way into my hectic tech-filled life. I'll leave links in the video description if you're interested in checking any of these accessories out. Okay, you know what? I actually have one more bonus reason why I didn't move to the big city, and I'll keep it brief, and it's very important, and if you relate to me, please do not make the almost mistake that I made. 2 years ago, and even still now, I was a complete wreck of a human being. You know, I had this YouTube channel, I was going to an impressive business school, it all seemed great on the surface, but I failed to realize that I was, and am, you know, still now, very ADHD and slightly to moderately autistic. And I don't say that in a sort of like self-diagnosed, you know, like, oh, pity me kind of way. No, no. It explains a lot, and it really explains my ineptitude when it came to growing the hell up and taking care of myself and being efficient and whatever. And it's something that I needed to learn how to manage. And it's tough because, like, you know, I didn't decide to be different or neurodivergent, but it really messes with your ability to reason through some things and also just work in a logical way, time manage, you kind of get caught up in just sort of entertaining yourself, especially if you're ADHD, you're sort of like a slave, you're a dopamine monkey, you're always looking for dopamine hits and social media. I recently had to admit that I have a social media addiction, but all of this to say, I had no grasp on my life. And I didn't know exactly how or why or what the reason was. So I thought, oh, you know what? I had this general idea or knowledge that pressure, like external pressure or structure, would whip me into shape. And I thought that Chicago or New York would do that because it would be expensive and there'd be things to do and people to see and all that. And I was sorely mistaken because I have plenty of things to do and people to see here, and I barely keep on top of or keep up with all of it. Even now, 2 years into developing, habits and systems and rethinking the way I do everything. I had to work from ground, like square zero to, square 10. I've made, marginal progress, but definitely lifelong, life-changing habits and whatever to actually somewhat function. But 2 years ago, couldn't do it. I was doing everything last minute, because that's what I did in high school. I could just sort of wing everything, and turns out when you run a YouTube channel with many projects, a month, you can't do that because my job is so multifaceted and there's so many things to keep up with and details, and when your brain is already poor at task management and time management and remembering things, it's an insurmountable sort of thing. So if I would have moved to the big city and paid all that money, I would have burnt out and went bankrupt, and probably the latter before the former. So all of this to say, I'm so glad I stayed put because I would have self-destructed and probably quit YouTube altogether. Moving on though, although I'm glad I mentioned all of that because it's advice I desperately needed to hear like 2 years ago. And thankfully my plans to move fell through because I would have again burnt out and went bankrupt, and that would have been really upsetting. So if you suspect you're neurodivergent, or even if you're not, even if you just are a wreck and need to get your life together, stay put, take your time, no need to amplify your problems and crash and burn. Okay, actually moving on though. Next up I want to go back to something I said about living in the suburbs of Ann Arbor. Why am I throwing up air quotes, sort of? What does that mean? Well, Ann Arbor is a special city opposed to pretty much every city I've experienced in Michigan or Southeast Michigan. Maybe Grand Rapids is similar, but I'll speak about Ann Arbor for now. It offers a lot of variety, and I didn't realize this at first because I moved here to the suburban part for school, because I could have moved on campus, but that would have just sabotaged my YouTube stuff. So I wanted to live off campus for the affordability aspect, and I also wanted to commute to school, which was pretty easy, and I went back and forth, and I was just mostly at my apartment, doing my work and my thing, and also going to school in the one part of campus that was for business and a couple classes here and there. But I was only between two places, and I really wasn't sort of living it up here, having the college life. That wasn't my thing, but I didn't really experience the city. And I realized with time that it offers not just the suburban life that I grew up with and I actually quite enjoy, even though I love the city, and prancing around and all that. I love having a car. I love my local diner. I love going to Costco and shopping in a plaza and having parking lots and just, the whole thing. Like, it's relaxing, it's nice, it's peaceful, it's quiet, whatever. My chair is massaging me. This is a chair I'm gonna review soon. That's scared me. Oh my gosh. Anyway, beyond the suburban life that I like, which is also affordable and offers me the space that I need to have a nice YouTube set, and there's also rural parts here, because if you look on a map, Ann Arbor is literally surrounded, on all sides by farmland and stuff. Like Southeast Michigan is where I grew up. That's honestly urban sprawl, but here it's like a little oasis and a pocket of literal forest and farmland, which is pretty cool. So you get the suburbs, you get some rural areas when you're driving here and there, but most importantly to this video, there's also a phenomenal little micro downtown area. Not even micro, it's actually pretty big considering what it is. It's no Chicago, it's no New York, but it's pretty sizable, and I know it pretty well at this point, and I'm getting to know it even better because the studio that I'm now renting is smack dab in the middle, which is wonderful, and I'll touch on that more here. But how did I end up, deciding to do this? How did I end up venturing out here? Well, I was inspired by the Big Apple, New York, actually. I went on a business trip earlier this year, and I'd been before, last year or in 2020. 2024 and in 2023, and I just sort of realized that I was over it. But I went this year to go see Apple, or to go to a little, Apple event. I then found out, for the spring stuff, the launch of the Mac Studio and the MacBook Air. But I also went to go see Paper Lake CEO Jan Sapper. He had something he wanted to show myself and Isaac, Canupsi and Tom Bite Review and a couple others. So I went and I enjoyed, and I didn't kind of have this thought of like moving there, but I just enjoyed, just being in the downtown environment, Manhattan, Brooklyn, all that. And when I came back, I realized I was like, oh man, like, I need that, but obviously I can't make it work in Chicago or New York for the reasons I mentioned. We also actually in New York rented a WeWork, or Jan did, to show us his, developments or whatever. So that kind of placed the idea in my head, and I thought, I should probably look for office space. So I went on LoopNet, which is like the office, apartment.com type situation. And I just was looking, and I came across, some smaller places, some rinky-dink places, some really dim places. And I thought like, oh, maybe I'll have a spot to do emails or editing, and that'll be enough to just sort of get me out of the house, because editing in my bedroom and planning and stuff, that was just not working out. I couldn't do it. It was just like planning your stuff and doing it in the next room is just, again, maddening. So I thought about, just having a little tiny space, but that was like, $400 a month, something like that. It didn't seem like it was worth my money. But then I found this place, and I honestly couldn't believe the price for it. It's a 400 square foot, space, smack dab in the middle of downtown, beautiful, window light, all that, and I'll describe more about this later. But it was like going for like $1,000 a month, which may seem like a lot, but for the location and the size and just what I could do here, in short, I knew this was a space I could not pass up. I knew I would regret it if I didn't look into it. And I hadn't even toured it yet. It just had a special vibe to it. And then I actually got a tour pretty quickly, on a whim. I found it on a whim. And the minute I was in here, I was like, yeah, like I'm moving in here. Like the shoe fit, and I knew that I would regret it if I didn't sort of go out on a limb here and, do this experiment, see if renting an office would help me scale and just have better mental health and just sort of work-life separation. And, I thought that even though I was a little anxious about the additional cost and if it would actually work out, but I was like, nope, I gotta do this. This is sort of the next step. And yeah, it's a wonderful space. Once again, it's 400 square feet. It has very tall ceilings, beautiful white walls. I'm all about that in my white walled apartment. Beautiful hardwood floors. And this is an older building, so there's radiators. It's from like the 20th century, early 20th century. So it's a really cool kind of New York-y vibe without the New York price and the New York inconvenience and, not having a car and being 600 miles away from my parents and having to fly back or drive back if I was in Chicago. This is super cool. I had friends in here and they're like, damn, this is like the most New York office you could have gotten, without it being in New York. So I got really, really lucky, and I have been, setting this place up for the past month. It's still a work in progress. I just put up these sound panels. They're still kind of coming off the wall, so I have to figure out how to make sure they stay put at least, for a few weeks at a time. But yeah, no, it's been a blast moving in here, and it's been great working in here for my own mental health and work-life separation, which I may touch more on. But yeah, I mean, the fact that I can come here and just, do some work, that it's specific to here, and then do some work that's specific to my apartment is wonderful. I think I mentioned, speaking of work, I have another desk setup, an ultra-wide desk setup with my MacBook Air for purely productivity stuff, emails, task management, contracts, just managing my content schedule, just so many things like the business back end that I have to do along with creating the content. So if you're like wondering why some content is delayed, it's because I have to do everything else. Like I'm the employer and the employee. It's nuts. I digress. I have a lot to do, and it's nice to sort of, again, have specific office tasks to sort of like worry about when I'm in the office. Like I can be at home and go, oh, well, I'll check my email and I'll worry about the contract when I'm in the office. And then I'll be at the office and I'll be planning stuff and be like, oh, well, I can't really film much here yet. I do plan on filming some stuff here, like A-roll and some product stuff, but my apartment still serves as the product footage set, so I have to do it at home. So there's an amount of external pressure to get stuff done here. Like for example, it's 2:29 a.m. I don't plan on doing this that often. I'm just still in a fakakta schedule because I'm simultaneously moving in here and also working, and I'm also not, you know, amazing at managing my productivity and efficiency yet, but I'm working on it. But anyway, I love this video. It's gonna be so long. But the point is, it's so great to mentally split tasks, you know, into office work and homework. Homework is funny because I would just be at home feeling like the pressure of having to do everything everywhere all at once, much like the movie, but not in a good way. Including chores and house tasks and whatever. So yeah, I have been enjoying this, even though this workspace is sort of a work in progress and, you know, I'm up pretty late. But yeah, it's a vibe and it's nice to be somewhere else for once. And speaking of being somewhere else, you have no idea how thrilled I am that not only my productivity specific desk setup is here, this ultra-wide desk setup, but more so my editing desk setup is here because that was in my bedroom, like literally bar for bar, one-to-one, minus the Mac Studio, of course. That was in my bedroom for a year, and I moved into my new apartment a year ago. It's wonderful. I still love it to this day. It's very intentional. It's designed nicely. It has tall ceilings, lots of window light. It's 1000% better than my previous situation where I had my desk set up in my like cluttered studio room. It was a mess. I didn't even want to live there, let alone work there. My point is, even though I love my new apartment, working in my bedroom became a nightmare because not only was I doing the business backend, Gmail, Notion, task management, whatever, I would do all this work, I'd do all this planning, then I would shoot stuff in the other room, then I'd come back in the same room and video edit with my bed behind me. And video editing is an incredibly intense task. You have to lock in and pay attention to a million details, and you don't want to mess stuff up, and maybe there's a clip you can't find, and it's stressful. And for somebody like me who already can't sit still, who already is trying to find something more fun to do, you know, yeah, it's a task that I feel like I need to be like strapped in, like locked in a room to do it. And that's exactly what this is. So I can't go do a chore, I can't lay on my bed, I can't relax, I can't go bother my cats, I can't really go on an errand because I'm like paying for parking down here, and like, you know, like I came all the way here, I got into the building, I am in this office, like it's not easy for me to leave. So, you know, even now, even though it's like way too late, like even for this A-roll, which is not exactly video editing, I have to get this done so I can go home. I'm already home and there's no pressure to do it. Anyway, if you have ADHD, you'll understand. And I love the fact that this video is a bunch of yapping, but why not? But yeah, no, I am so happy that this desk setup is in here. And now let's talk more about what's happening with it. So yes, I switched again to the Mac Studio as my primary computer. I explained my reasoning before. I wanted to get just the most for my money in terms of desktop performance and also a 16-inch MacBook Pro portable experience, because I need that. I need that now to work from home and also on the go here and there. So that's what I'm doing, and once again, this is all made possible thanks to Thunderbolt 5, making external storage almost as fast or just fast enough compared to internal storage to not sort of, bottleneck your internal specs. So you're not going to be like the speed of the drive is not going to hinder the maximum amount of horsepower you can harness with the M4 Pro, or more so the M4 Max in the Mac Studio. So I have a spec'd out version with the M4 Max 40-something core GPU, 16-core CPU, 120 gigs of RAM, you know, the whole 9 yards, 4 terabytes of internal storage, so not quite 8, but I'm grateful. But I have an 8 terabyte external drive, which is totally fine. So I have 12 terabytes of usable space plus an 8 terabyte backup that I carbon copy when I'm done working. And so far, this experience has been phenomenal. I have edited, you know, stuff like basic, like iPhone footage type stuff, but recently I put together a 27-minute MacBook Pro versus MacBook Air comparison, which maybe you saw. That was a nightmare to put together, a nightmare to shoot. There was so much going on and so much footage. And you know, a big project like that can kind of just choke up your computer. It has to just sort of keep up with all that. So this machine handled it like it was nothing, even better than, of course, my M2 Max MacBook Pro. Of course, I hope it would. But yeah, no, it's a dream. I personally didn't opt for an M3 Ultra. Mac Studio, I mean, I got a review unit which I get to, use for a minute here, which I'm grateful for. But even if I had to buy one, I wouldn't have gone for the M3 Ultra version, because that's more suited for LLMs and crazy stuff, and the single core scores are, more suited for that. Whereas the M4 Max has a more powerful, a single core, unit, the M4, architecture compared to M3. So you get higher single core scores, and that makes up for, or that is better for photo editing, video editing, stuff that I'm doing, nothing super insane and rendery and whatever. I mean, it's pretty rendery, but not to the point where it's like, I'm simulating 20,000 trees and I'm running a LLM that needs, a quarter terabyte of, RAM, which is like a demo that I saw in New York with the M3 Ultra Mac Studio. So that's far beyond what I need. So this machine is really great and far exceeds my expectations, and also gives me a lot of headroom to work with, again, for my, crazier projects like this 27-minute comparison video, or an 8K experimental, ad or multi-layered thing that I'm doing where I really want to push my Mac to its fullest potential. But yeah, I'm just really happy with the performance so far, and the fact that I can just pick up where I left off at home with my backup drive or the primary drive that I use externally on my MacBook Pro. So yeah, I am absolutely blown away by the performance, and I think you're getting a lot more for your money with the Mac Studio compared to the MacBook Pro. Again, if you need the MacBook Pro as an all-in-one experience, you do you. But if you're like me and you have a hybrid workflow now where you want to be in the office with the best computer possible, plus you want to have something modest or more modest for the road or for home, I think this 16-inch MacBook Pro plus M4 Pro chip plus the Mac Studio with the M4 Max chip is a great configuration. And if I, want the best experience, I have to come here. I have to get up and drive over here and sit down and, park and whatever, and just get into the office to, again, have the fastest, least latency experience, which encourages me to work and get stuff done anyway. Because like I said, I need my experience to be smooth and playback to be fast and all that. And also rendering too, like rendering effects. I do stabilization, I do color correction, I do other stuff. And if I'm doing some experimental multi-layered 8K stuff, I want to be able to render and preview stuff quickly. So this machine just eats through that, no problem, more so than any Mac that I've used. And I would hope, because it's, an expensive machine and has a newer chip. But yeah, I mean, it's a beast. You really can't do better than it. And if you really want the most for your money and you're doing most of your work sitting down at a desk, again, the Mac Studio, while it is niche, it's a complete monster, especially with Thunderbolt 5 now. I mean, the chip is great, but Thunderbolt 5 really changes the game, because again, you can work externally, and I prefer that because I don't want to have my livelihood, my projects on an internal drive. Like, I want to use the internal drive for swap and maybe some personal stuff, but for my work, I want to be able to have that there and or external and redundant, and not trapped in the machine, God forbid something happens to it. So that gives me a lot of peace of mind. And again, the performance is no different than what it would be on the internal drive, apparently like 4,000 megabytes per second and up, which is what you get with the 80 gigabit per second Thunderbolt 5 speed. With an NVMe, which I have two of, you're not, again, bottlenecking the performance that you're offered with either an M4 Pro, MacBook Pro, and especially an M4 Max Mac Studio. So overall, I am absolutely satiated and just so impressed with the incredible performance with the Max chip Mac Studio. You don't need the M3 Ultra version to do what I do. Again, you only really need that if you're doing some insane, virtual LLM, movie studio level stuff. Otherwise, this machine is more than enough for what you need, even for me, and I do quite a bit of, heavy, intensive tasks. Beyond performance though, if you're not familiar with my desk setup, it really hasn't changed all that much over the past 2 years, and for good reason, because I have some pretty great peripherals happening here. First and foremost, the Pro Display XDR, you can't really do any better, with regard to a creative monitor. It's 32 inches, 6K resolution, great for preserving like a 4 or 5K window with some resolution left over for UI. It also gets super, super bright, sustained 1000 nits with the Vivid plugin if you use it, and also when Apple allows you to by default. It looks sick, it's giant once again. I love it, it's worth every penny to me because all I do is work on the computer and more so specifically do creative work and photo editing, 50 megapixel files and stuff, and 4K to 8K video, and I need that brightness, I like that nuance, I need that color accuracy and contrast, all of that. Again, if this is all you do for a living and you're an Apple user, why not? If you can write it off, you know, if you can justify it, grab one. Although I wouldn't do it now. I'd wait for the second gen, which will be powered by Thunderbolt 5, so maybe it'll be 120 hertz. I don't know. I will get my hands on one of those when they come out here. And then this monitor is flanked by Audio Engine A2 Plus studio drivers, which I love not only for creative work, but also blasting music, especially when I'm here at the office late when nobody else is here, because they'd kill me if I you know, did that. But yeah, they're great for entertainment. I love them so much, I actually bought them from my desk setup in my bedroom now, which is a casual situation with a Mac Mini and a Dell monitor that's 120 hertz that I also have hooked up to a gaming PC. So I'll go over that setup on a different day, but that's a good one. It's nice to have, you know, like a casual desk setup in your bedroom where you're not like feeling this like pressure to like edit for 7 hours. Anyway, I also have the Apple Magic Keyboard and the MX Master 3S or something going on a trackpad. And that's about it. Oh, and those lamps, you know, a standing desk from FlexiSpot, basic stuff. But it works, and it looks great in this office with the windowed views and all that. So I'm very happy, and again, I'm happy that it's here because I cannot video edit for 7.5 hours in my bedroom ever again. And yeah, again, the views that I get out the window here are just gorgeous. They're not New York, you know, Manhattan skyline level, but I get to see construction out of the window to my left of my Pro Display desk setup, which is kind of symbolic and cool. And you know, I just love it. It's really sick to, you know, be in this building and to just sort of see the sights and just people on the street and to be able to go out and just walk around. Again, downtown Ann Arbor is really amazing. If you go to school here, you know that there's just, you know, so many things to do, so many good restaurants to go to. And I'm just so excited to implement it into my content for day in the life stuff, because there's only so much you can do in your apartment, you know, like I did a day in the life with the MacBook Pro 14-inch, and I was like at the apartment, and then I went to the store, and then I went to go see my family, and then I came back, and that still did well, and that was a good video. But the fact that I can just, you know, literally make content that, you know, revolves around my life down here and actually live it too, and like walk out. And for example, like even tonight, I was able to walk and grab dinner and bring it here and eat it. I was able to go to Walgreens and grab a card for my grandfather whose birthday is tomorrow. Like, there's so many little errands and things that I can do here that I can't just like up and do, you know, from my apartment, because that's like suburbia and I have to get in my car and go to the store, and that's nice, you know, I appreciate that. I wouldn't want to lose that, especially for like going to Costco where I have to grab a bunch of stuff and put it in my car. That would be a horrific experience in like New York. And I know there's a Costco in New York, but I just like I wouldn't want to rent a car. I wouldn't want to drive it there. You know, I love my suburban life, but I love my little city life where I can eat and go on an errand or grab a donut or just go on a walk and just see what people are doing. People play, you know, instruments on the street. There's different things going on. There's an art fair during the summer. You know, it's a vibe. It's gorgeous. There's great architecture. There's little small businesses I want to explore, and there's just people around, you know, unlike, you know, in my suburban, you know, apartment complex where people just keep to themselves and whatever. So I get the best of both worlds here, and I'm so grateful. And that's why I'm glad I thugged it out in my horrific, awful divorced dad apartment, and then my newer one, which is wonderful. But again, I can't be there for 14 hours. You can be in the most gorgeous mansion imaginable I could imagine and still be miserable there because you're not getting out of the house enough. So this is a fabulous next step for me. Thank you for sticking with me and watching my content and making the dream work here. But yeah, I gotta give a lot of credit to myself here. I'm like Snoop Dogg. I want to thank me. The past couple of years have been a hell of a time, to say the least, and I really had to lock in and trust myself and trust the process and give up on my New York City girly pop city girl dream, you know, and realize that, you know, aspects of it were valid, but a lot of it was just not necessary or too expensive or not feasible. So I really get the best of both worlds here in terms of, you know, living my suburban life and being close to my loved ones and family, and also getting this city experience, which again, I'm so happy I get to incorporate into my life. I'm happy I get to be here somewhere else, you know, a very different environment that I have to literally drive to and park and walk and all this. Like it's a literal separation between work and home. And you know, if you have a hybrid work situation or you go to the office, you know, I feel for you. I am definitely in a place of, I don't want to say privilege, because I've worked incredibly hard to be here. Like this is all I do. Like it's 3:05 a.m. I've been, you know, by myself all day, you know, like this is all I do. This is my calling. This is my passion. This is all I do. So I got to give myself credit. But all of this to say, appreciate your hybrid work situation, or just going to the office, because I'm telling you, like from the other side, as someone who's just worked from home, you can do it too much and it's not a good time. So anyway, let me check my script here, because I've just been on a tangent this whole video. All of this to say, if you can do it, if you're self-employed, or if you just are remote and you want to find a little small office space, because you don't have to get a 400 square foot space or anything, I highly recommend it, because it just alleviates so much pressure that you may have at home to just get everything done. You know what I mean? Like it literally like moves the stress like to another location. So I just can worry about office work here and homework there and go in between and not feel like this giant weight of everything on my shoulders, because I have to do everything in one space. So I don't know. It's easier said than done, you know, but consider it if you can. I know, you know, other creators have definitely benefited from this kind of situation. Isaac, you know, Canoopsy was someone who inspired me to do this. Tom as well. So yeah, if you're a creator, definitely consider this if you need to. And then, of course, I have to talk about the Mac situation here, because that's sort of the theme, or another theme of the video here, beyond me just yapping about my life. The Mac Studio has been incredible. It is definitely a necessary, integral part of the studio space, the studio for my studio. It's so funny how I figured out this Mac setup situation before I even knew that I was going to move into a studio. So again, if you need a desktop computer, or you mostly use your MacBook at your desk and you need all this power, and you also want to have a portable MacBook, but you don't want to have, you know, a total liability on your hands, plus you want to work externally, if you relate to all of these things, or you know, if your situation sounds similar to mine, grab a Mac Studio. You will not regret it. I'm so fortunate that Apple sent me a review unit to test long term, but even if they hadn't, I would have picked one of these up eventually, because it's such a fabulous computer. And random aside, it has a SD card reader on the front, which I really enjoy, even though I have like a 4 quad one that I use. But yeah, the Mac Studio has been treating me well. It's so late. I gotta like look at my notes here, because I've been just recording 30 different segments here. Yeah, all in all, before my brain shuts down here, even though I have to like edit this before I go home, see, that's the beauty of this place. It is amazing to have work and life separation. As someone who has always been on the other side of the fence, you know, like everybody's like, oh, like must be nice to be a YouTuber, must be nice to just do what you want when you want and all that. And it is nice to a point, especially if you struggle to self-motivate like I do. So renting a space has been game-changing. Even though I'm here late, even though I'm sort of catching up, or, you know, sort of paying for the sins of my past, specifically using my phone too much, which I did to cope with being at home for 14 hours a day. You know, like when TikTok was banned for like a day, you know, that was funny. I realized I was on that app like 15 plus hours a week. That's completely, like, that's not good. So, but I had to do it because I had to entertain myself. I had to stay sane and just cope with the fact that I really couldn't go anywhere else. Because, you know, like I have to work, I have to sit and do the emails and the contracts and the planning and the writing and the research, and then of course the eventual shooting and then the editing, you know, all in the same rooms, which was just like, oh my gosh. So the fact that I can wake up in the morning, eat my breakfast, you know, either at my apartment or somewhere else, and then just head here and then just get the work done and then go home, or vice versa, you know, shoot in the morning and just have my day and then come here later and then, you know, edit and then go home and go to bed. It is chef's kiss, amazing. You really don't appreciate external structure until you no longer have it. And I definitely appreciated it during grade school and high school. And you know, when it was gone, I didn't know what to do. So I have recreated it for myself. I pay for it. It seems kind of silly, but again, if you run your own business or you know, you work from home purely and you find yourself going a little insane, yeah, you may want to rent a little tiny little office space if you can, even if it's tiny, even if it's a closet. If you have to get out of your house, get in your car, drive a minimum of 10 minutes to be somewhere, and then just, you know, to just have that sort of, you know, expectation to get something done because you've made the effort to go, it's game changing. It sounds silly, but just, you know, I just wanted to share this process that I have experienced for the past 2 years. I hope it was entertaining. And again, check out the Mac Studio. It is a phenomenal machine. I'm so happy I have implemented it into my many, many different desk setups and Apple ecosystem usages, whatever. I'm losing my mind at this point. And I know my friends, my YouTuber friends, make fun of me for using all of the different Macs and all that. I use the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, the Mac Studio now, the Mac Mini in my bedroom, the iMac, you know, in my living room, but I want to use all of the products. And honestly, it's nice to compartmentalize. It's nice to have a machine specifically for one task and then specifically for another task. So, you know, there's a method to my madness. You know, maybe it's inspiring, maybe it's laughable, I don't know, but at this point, yeah, I need to finish this up and go to bed. Anyway, glad to have you here. Maybe you made it through, maybe you didn't. But again, check out TORRAS if you haven't already. They make my favorite iPhone case, and the charging accessories are genuinely useful. So check them out once again. And thanks for sticking with me. Again, it has been a process. I mean, it still is. I am learning how to manage myself and make better content and scale and just keep this going. And again, I'm so excited that I'm literally in the middle of downtown, so I can just make my content even better and more dynamic and more interesting, specifically day in the life content, which is always so, you know, fun to make. Actually, it's not fun to make. It's a nightmare, but but no, it's fun to watch. It's a nightmare to make and edit, but I love it regardless. It's so fun and it's real. I like to show you my real life. I want to keep it as real as possible. So hopefully that has been a vibe you've gotten from this video. But anyway, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more content coming from me. I can't wait to spend 40 hours editing this video, or not really, but still, at least I don't have to do it in my bedroom where I feel like taking a break every 5 seconds. Anyway, I need to go to bed. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I got tears popping out. I yawned so hard. Let me try that again. As always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.